Let's start this video with a little thought experiment. Imagine it's in caveman times and there are two men walking along a path. Lining the sides of a path is dense shrubbery and bushes. There's one main difference between these two men. One of them is overly rational. He only acts in accordance with what he knows for certain through the processes of logic, reasoning and perception. And the other one's a real jumpy fella who overreacts to the sound of the wind.
I'm just a caveman. Your world frightens and confuses me.
As they walk along, one of the bushes rustles. The overreactive fellow instantly assumes the worst. It's a terrifying predator who's been lying in wait for them, and this is its moment to strike. He reacts by freezing, then turning heel and running away like a madman. The overly rational man instead looks at the bushes, realises that he can only say with certainty that the bushes are rustling and that's it, but he can't say with certainty what is causing it. So he stands there and waits for further information before he makes a judgment. But suddenly a bear emerges from the bushes, pounces on the overly rational man before he can react, and while the jumpy fella on the other hand is miles away running like a madman. In this case, was it more advantageous to be rational or to overreact? The answer is obvious. But now take these same two men and put them in modern times. Instead, they're walking down the street and a car backfires. They both react in the same way, yet we can see the overly rational man has a much more justified reaction, while the overly jumpy man ends up looking like a fool, and others around him recommend he goes to therapy or increases his dose of antidepressants. The interesting thing about these two examples is that the reactions are the same, yet the environment is different. Most of us will never have to live in fear of a bear attack while walking down a suburban street, nor will we have to fear that our boss or partner may excommunicate us from our tribe to starve to death away from the safety of the community. Yet we react to the world around us as though these things are still happening. So the question is, why? This is where we call upon the work of a man called Stephen Porges, who presents a theory called Neuroception.
What the hell is that?
Think about cybersecurity nowadays. Technology has advanced at such a rapid pace and become so accessible to so many people that with it came the inevitability of the innocent and unaware user being taken advantage of. Scams, hacks, data leaks, you name it. So as a result, there's been a tilt into cybersecurity following the mantra of better safe than sorry.
It's like my mama always said, better safe than sorry.
Now every email you log into has to be verified by 6 other devices. You need to wait on hold with your bank to get permission to spend your own money above a certain amount. You need backup emails and numbers and accounts and passwords and temporary passcodes that refresh every 20 seconds till it makes the simple task of checking your email like trying to break into Fort Knox. But we accept this inconvenience because when it comes to security, it's much better to overreact than underreact. Or another way of putting it,
better safe than sorry.
It's much better to inconvenience users with these processes than to have to report to them that all their money and personal information has been stolen.
We've just been hacked.
Well, in our human development, we lived in a world that was basically always trying to kill us in any way it could. So natural selection decided to also live by that maxim of
Better safe than sorry. Right.
Over time, those who overreacted to things were more likely to survive than others. Think of our two men walking by the bush example. If a bush rustles 1,000 times and 999 times it turns out to be the wind or a bird, then you haven't actually lost anything by running away from it. However, if on the 1,000th time it's a dangerous predator, then the game is over. So it's better to overreact 1,000 times and survive than to underreact one time and be killed. So if more overreactive people are surviving, over time this becomes such a common behaviour that it becomes coded into the human nervous system. This is what Stephen Porges calls neuroception. Basically, your nervous system develops a safety scanning software that operates on a subconscious level, constantly scanning the environment for threats to safety. Because it operates on the better safe than sorry approach, it looks for the tiniest, most subtle cues from the environment that might signal danger and triggers a stress response so that the person can act instantly. These cues can be as tiny as the change of tone or expression on someone's face, the sound of a twig snapping, someone making a sharp movement or gesture, or even the tickle of a breeze on the back of your neck. Any of these things, however subtle, might be a precursor to danger. So it gets your body ready to react instantly, because the quicker you react, the higher your chances of survival, even if it turns out to be nothing.
I know you're joking, but my flight or flight response doesn't.
Isn't it fight or flight?
Not for me.
The importance of this theory is that it explains so well why we seem to be at odds with the world around us. Our human bodies are, for the most part, still adapted to be living as cavemen, yet we find ourselves in the safest world that has ever existed in human history. This is a very obvious mismatch, and while on a conscious, cognitive level, we've come to terms with how safe the world is, we're still equipped with the same safety scanning software that's looking for bear attacks and for rival tribes to kill us and steal our food. Here's a few examples of where you might see this play out in your daily life. Imagine you're out for dinner in a public place, completely engaged in a conversation. Then the sound of a glass breaking causes your whole body to tense up, your breath to be held, and your attention to instantly snap across the room. Or let's say you meet someone that makes you extremely uncomfortable, despite the fact that they've done nothing overtly to suggest that they're dangerous. However, you just don't get a good vibe from them. Or maybe your partner says something in a certain tone and you feel extremely angry, despite the fact that the words they're saying aren't anything out of the ordinary or wrong at all. You get the gist. Anyway, all of these are examples of an overreactive nervous system looking for any possible threats to safety. Porges noticed the implications for our experience of safety as a result of this. To make people safe, it's not just enough to remove physical danger from the environment. There are also subtle environmental cues that need to be adapted, such as tone of voice, for example, to make someone's experience of safety align with the reality of their safety. So what are the implications of these theories for us?
What am I supposed to do now?
Well, I think the most important implication is that one would be very, very foolish, in my opinion, to view this as an excuse for poor behaviour. You can't just excuse inappropriate reactions by saying, it's just the way I'm wired.
Don't blame me. Blame my brain.
I think our reaction should be the exact opposite. Because we know why we overreact to things in this way, it should actually increase the impetus to learn how we manage it, and to not give as much weight to these reactions as it seems we should. Acceptance and commitment therapy, also known as ACT, teaches a balanced way to deal with this, in which you acknowledge the stress response or the feeling, and acknowledge the possible source of the feeling, and then you drop a metaphorical anchor while you wait for the sensation to pass. In ACT, an anchor is basically a conscious action that you can focus on so that you're not taken over completely by the feeling. An example might be acknowledging that you feel anxiety and focusing on breathing deeply while you wait for the sensation to pass. So in summary, your body is wired to overreact to things based off the neurophysiological idea of better safe than sorry. However, I think that since in general the world around us is so safe, we have a responsibility to know that our body's inaccurate attempts to keep us safe are well-intentioned but need to be managed by the reasoning part of our brain. Let me leave you with this thought to summarize it. You can't control what you feel, but you can control what you do.